Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is David, the CEO of MYR. Hello.
How are you?
Doing great. Please tell us what your company does.
We are a SaaS-based point of sale that's specifically organized in the cloud to work with quick service restaurants only. So we don't touch table service. If a very simple difference between the two is you pay before you eat, right? So anywhere where you have to place an order, you pay, and then you'll receive your food. That's a quick service versus a full service, right? So that's what it's about. And so what makes it a product different that way is think about the systems that you'll find in a full service restaurant as a point of sale. Many of them: Toast, Lightspeed, Touch Bistro, Maitre d', all those. And then if you look at the quick service point of sales, you're going to see more custom solutions. Like Subway has their own developed point of sale. McDonald's has its own system that they built from the ground up, sitting on NCR hardware. Because when you're in a full service restaurant, it's not about speed of the point of sale versus when you're at a McDonald's, it's all about speed of the point of sale, right?
Absolutely.
So very different engineering, different engineering structure. So what we did is a long time ago, we built tech stack about 13 years ago. We only incorporated about 5 and only been really actively selling for 3 because quick service didn't exist 13 years ago. It was just this concept of, it was like fast food chains and restaurants, and then coffee shops started to become the first QSRs, and then taco stands and salad bars. And so we naturally built a product that fit to that workflow. And so we're one of the rare only cloud-based QSR-focused POSs out there because everyone else went into the full service back in the day. And we were one of the rare that just grew into this new vertical that is obviously dominating the world, right?
Yeah. Thank you for the explaining. It's now clear. So what type of businesses do you support?
Let's look at quick service in a nutshell. So it started with coffee shops, right? The idea was, how can I serve? How can I, you're making 90% of your sales in 2 hours, right? The morning rush. So how can I have a system that efficiently allows me to punch in and output as many orders as possible? Like how can I go from 200 orders in those 2 hours to 300 orders? So coffee shops, then that migrated into actually our first customer was a salad bar, which had multiple different stations. So having multiple different caches relaying to multiple different KDSs, kitchen stations, then food trucks, and anything that was trying to make something quickly and efficiently, whether it's from coffee to, let's say, a burrito, it doesn't matter. But then the natural progression was that quick service restaurants, its natural progression is to scale. And what does scaling mean? It doesn't mean scale to fulfill more orders only. It's also what happens. It's multiply and eventually become a franchise. So from a single point of SaaS technology that we were delivering for a single location, the natural progression was to start helping franchises. And that's now where we're excelling. So we're able to get in and service restaurant franchises, which are mostly quick service, right? If you open a sit-down restaurant, you're not thinking about opening 10 of them. You want that one to be perfect. And you want that one to be the one that everyone's going to go to and the one that's going to survive, right? Become a staple. Yeah. But whereas if you're like doing a shawarma really well, you want to be able to replicate. So you need a technology, and that's who we service. So we service from the individual SMB in a quick service space all the way to franchises that have over 100 locations now that run on our platform. So that's what we're doing.
And can you share with us some of your features?
The one really interesting thing is that we've built. We're the only point of sale that has direct two-way integrations with Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes in Canada, DoorDash, and Ritual, and we're working on Grubhub now. So we have no middleware. We're fully vertically integrated. We have our own white label ordering application as well. It's a React JS with a progressive web app so that it works on any device, bypassing the app stores. We have our POS itself that you can have up to unlimited number of cash registers sitting on iPads connected to an unlimited number of kitchen displays sitting on iPads, having unlimited table-side ordering, or let's say line busting iPads that can go out into the space, and all of that is working not through the cloud, actually the local Wi-Fi Wi-Fi network, so that in case internet goes down, it's still working between the POS. We connect to a plethora of different payment terminals via different payment companies. Now we're adding a customer-facing display. We're actually looking to integrate ourselves into something called Chef XML, which is the systems that the big chains are using in their kitchens, right? So if we want to ever talk to those chains, we can't tell them get rid of all those installations and replace it with iPads. You gotta bring in, you gotta connect to them. So these are the kind of things that we do. We have our own features that allow to do simple tasks outside the ordering process, which is our ecosystem. And then we have direct integration. So an example of that is, we'll have our own simple punch clock, which will allow employees to check in and out so that, the employers know who's working when and what they owe them. But if somebody needs to go and do more complicated stuff, features like scheduling and transferring shifts between, this is not our core, so we connect to a company, let's say, called 7 Shifts, right?
Yes.
We'll build our core of features that'll allow someone to run their restaurant or their space or their smaller franchise, but then we'll connect to softwares or platforms that excel at much more advanced features. So that's the kind of stuff we do.
And what is the pricing?
Ranges from 79 to, I think it's 149. We have different promotions, of course, and then we also resell hardware, of course. So we'll do installation trainings and all that, but it's from 79 to 149 a month.
Yeah. And can you share with us some success stories?
Yeah, actually there is one. There was this franchise called Bustan. Actually, it wasn't even a franchise. There's this one place in Montreal called Bustan. It was one of them. And I actually survived university a long time ago because of it, because it was a $5 meal that you could make. And what was funny about it is, like, it was the place. At 3 in the morning, when all the clubs and all the bars would close, there'd be lineups around the block because people wanted to eat a delicious shawarma at the end of the day, at the end of the night. So, I always knew about the brand. And then one day, they started franchising. So somebody bought the brand, the original owner retired. Somebody bought the brand and started to multiply. And when they were at about 10 or 15 locations, we were not in any of them. And I was like, how come we're not in any of them? We need this brand. I mean, I love this brand. I've eaten this brand, and it's our perfect brand. It's like it was the first franchise. Like we had another franchise before called Mr. Pretzels, but that was very simple. So today we have Mr. Pretzels, and it's about 120 locations with us. But Bustan was a much more complicated thing, much more complicated. It was a bigger restaurant. It's not just a small menu, it's big menu, etc. So he called up the owner, went to meet him. He sat down with me. He says, "Tell me why I should use you." Because he goes, I have right now 3 point of sales in 10 to 15 different locations, and I need to consolidate. And none of them are willing to work with me to build what I need the system to be able to do, not just for a franchisee level, but a franchisor level. I looked him straight in the face. I said, give me the business and I'll do whatever you want. And today we're at 60 locations with them and growing about two a month. And we've built really interesting features with them. We have, like, a perfect example, we built automatically calculating all royalties that franchisees need to pay on a weekly and monthly basis, and automatically generate invoices in their accounting softwares so that their controllers don't have to sit and waste countless hours a week doing that manual work. So this is the kind of stuff I think that's one of the best success stories.
And how competitive is this space?
That's an interesting question. For the SMBs, it's very competitive because an SMB won't necessarily understand the difference between, like, what we're doing versus, let's say, a full service restaurant POS is going to do. They won't understand that truly speed and efficiency is what you're looking for, less touch points, et cetera, because an SMB is not necessarily thinking about growth or scalability.
Correct.
And whereas, but what's interesting is that, so we have a lot of noise competition, indirect competitors, okay? Which is a challenge in itself, because you have to convince people to understand that you're solving pain points that they don't normally think
you have
about.
to educate first.
That's right. But what's interesting is that for franchises so far, we don't have any competitors. What we have is the investment required to swap out existing antiquated systems that have been massive investments, right? Like installing an NCR into a franchise, into one location, you're looking at maybe $30,000-$40,000 investment. You know, so it's, and the maintenance fee. Now you're trying to, then you have, now let's say there's 50 locations, and you have to say, well, you need to spend $4,000 just to swap all that out, times 50 locations. I mean, this is heavy investment. So the willingness to adapt new technology is really our competitor. Yeah. If it's a new franchise, we're winning all that business right now. I'm talking, we only service Canada and United States, so that's pretty much where we're at.
Nice. And how did you come up with the idea?
It wasn't my idea. It was, I used to have a web development studio, and the first third wave coffee shop in Canada called Cafe Myriad by Anthony Benda, who's funny enough is the #4 barista in the world. He wins one at Vienna, so he's #1 in Canada. And he called me and he said, I heard you make apps. And I said, yeah, sure. What do you want? He goes, I want a POS. And I was like, I didn't even know what a POS, I mean, I knew what a POS is. I kind of see them in the restaurants, but I was like, why? Just go get one. They're free. Shopify at the time, Square, Lightspeed Retail. And he said, in polite terms, he said, none of them solve my problem. And I was like, okay, well, what is your problem? He goes, I need to serve 300 coffees or 200 coffees in 2 hours, within those 2-hour windows, and I need the lineup from the door to the cash to be less than 4 minutes, otherwise people are leaving. So I was like, interesting. I was like, okay, so what is it then? He goes, well, I want what McDonald's has. And I said, too bad, man. Like that's custom, like forget it. It's millions of dollars, right? He says, exactly. He goes, so what I need is that technology, or that level, close to that level of technology at my price point. So I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So we built out this first thing. But what was interesting is that it wasn't coming from tech guys making a product and trying to fit it in, saying this is how things should work. It was coming from a guy that knew exactly what he wanted to achieve. And then me, who was a UX expert, I guess you can say expert, but experience on how to make something usable and user-friendly for anyone. So our POS, immediately when you look at our point of sale, it doesn't look at all like a point of sale. If I handed you our POS, within 3 minutes you know how it works, because it's built on intuition. And and the mimicking of that is, well, we were like, okay, well, what do we have to do? Well, it has to feel like Amazon or eBay, which are the most ugliest interfaces possible, but everybody knows how to use it. Right?
Exactly.
So that's how it all started. It was just basically like, we need to build something that doesn't exist. And then slowly but surely, more coffee shops started calling, asking, they're saying, look, we'll give you a few $1,000s. We want this feature, that feature. And then eventually, as the QSR world started happening, there was taco food trucks, and then salad bars. And they were like, we want these features, that. So it was the perfect mix, because it was designed by restaurateurs that know what they needed, being in the QSR space, but having a UX, I guess, architect and a team of guys that were always trying to build, back in the day, marketing things to get people engaged and usability. So it was a perfect marriage of that, which is very rare, which is a very rare thing.
It's a very interesting story. I'm amazed. And are you the only founder?
No, it was I built the original tech stack, but then I had a co-founder, Nadezhdin Vani, who's a big club owner and restaurateur in Canada. So he founded it with me, because at the time I was involved in another company, and I was like, I can help build the tech, but I can't run it day to day. I don't have the time. And then eventually I left from the other company and I came in, and it was the perfect time for me to take over as I guess, I don't like titles, but CEO, and really drive it. And in the last 3 years, we've seen tremendous growth. We started 3 years ago at 75,000 in ARR. Now we're sitting at 1.5. ARR, and we have a ridiculously low churn. So we're not losing customers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And have you raised any funds?
Yeah, we raised a small round, 1.25 million, from some private investors, some angels. One of them is actually Lester Fernandez, who's the co-founder, or former co-founder, well, still co-founder, but he's no longer active, and the CFO of Nuvei, Pivotal Payments, which is now publicly traded. So he invested in us, and that's it. And now we've actually been focusing on profitability for the last 3 years, because we saw what was coming with the valuation games, and now we're actually cash flow positive operationally, and we plan to have we're going to have a positive EBITDA of about $500,000 by the end of 2023. So we want profitability over growth. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's important nowadays, as you said.
Yeah, cash is king.
Correct. And how big is your team right now?
I have developers in both Russia and Ukraine. Funny enough, with what's happening, but these are my boys. Like, this is family. We've been working together since I started my first business when I was 20, in 2002. Yeah, about that.
When I was born.
Yeah, there you go. I'm an old man. So we've been working with them for a long time. So it's just family. So I have teams there, and in Canada we have a small team. We're about I think 8 full-time people, and we don't plan on scaling too quickly. You know, I couldn't be prouder. I have a team of people. Like, every person is able to do the job of literally 3 people, and they're not working more than one person should work. So it's again, quality over quantity, and that's the mantra that's always taken the company.
But how do you manage to achieve that? I think it's a great discipline, right?
Yeah, well,
to stick to those principles.
Yeah, well, the important principle is look for accountability, not responsibility. Responsibility is, I made a mistake. Too bad. No, accountability is understand that how you directly affect somebody else's work. That's number one. The other thing is, it's funny, I don't look for experience necessarily in what I need someone to do. I mean, in coding, of course, you want some sort of skill base, but an example is my customer success manager never was a customer success manager. What's funny is that he was a sergeant in the German army. He was a paramedic, and then he was a manager at McDonald's, and then he brought us in. He was the director of operations for a vegan chain in Montreal. So he knows the restaurant space. He knows how to be a drill sergeant, like all of that, right? Then we hired our onboarding expert who trains everybody and has to have the patience with people that not necessarily understand technology or whatever it may be, or are stressed because it's a restaurant. I mean, she was the administrator of a methadone clinic for 3 years. So these are the kind of traits I'll look for. I look for what does the role really entail at a root cause, patience, patience, skill set of like communication, whatever it may be, and I'll look for those things over actual experience in like, say, the software. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how I build my teams. I look for things like that, because I can't even write a line of code. I literally cannot write even a hello world, but I can read code once it's written, because I did mathematics in the day. So I have that skill set available to me. So I applied that into what I'm doing.
I really like your thinking, and I guess every employee for the company has a unique story. In that way.
Oh yeah, we're a very eclectic group of people, to say the least. But it makes it fun, you know. It's like,
exactly.
You know, it's if you're gonna grow, especially gonna grow in software. Like, look, we see what's happening in general, and I don't want to bash any companies, but just examples of, like, again, I'm not bashing, but I don't get it. I just don't understand. But like, look at Toast. I mean, look at Toast, and just from the reviews of support, it's a disaster. As a founder, yeah, okay, you made a lot of money. That's great, and maybe that's what you want, and that's cool. But It's not for me. If I had a stock that looked like their graph from day one, literally in decline, I don't know if I would wake up in the morning, like leave my bedroom. I'd be embarrassed. I would be. So there's a trade-off, and I chose the different approach to things.
Yeah. And do you have any piece of advice for founders?
Yeah. Make sure that you know what you're not good at early on, and find people that you can trust to help you with that. Example, like I was terrible at reading even an Excel spreadsheet for finances, and I made the mistake of not finding back in the day a CFO. And so before I really embarked into, let's say, MYR and trying to grow it into what it was, I found a CFO. And then that CFO actually, it was a CFO for hire, and then he built the model, and he worked with me. He explained it to me. I'm not by any means an expert, but I plugged that leak early before I embarked on taking people's money and growing. Also, get someone who's extremely good in operations. These are the two things you want to know. But the first piece of advice is know what you're not good at and plug those leaks. And don't get me wrong. Don't say, I don't want to know anything about it. I found people. You need to know what's going on. So be ready to learn. But plug the leaks early.
Yeah, you have to find the balance there.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And I have just one last question. What's your favorite software that you use daily?
It's Basecamp, and my developers hate it because they're like, stop. They're like, use Jira, and I look at Jira and I'm like, I'm too old to learn this. I like simplicity. So Basecamp is my daily. And Gmail. That's not really. That's a necessity. But software, I like Basecamp because it allows me to just simply write out what I need done. But now that I have a great CTO, who's actually phenomenal, who's also helping me product manage. Now I can write it. He said, okay, fine, you can keep Basecamp. I'll take it and I'll put it into Jira. So it worked out. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.